Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, podsters, or podroonies if you prefer. This week, as Ant-Man Quantumania is reaching the big screens, yes, Marvel has returned, people. It does feel like a long time since Marvel has been around, like a good 6 months, frankly. It seems like a long time for them. I think the last thing was like She-Hulk, and that ended like late August, early September or something. So yeah, it's been a few months. It's like, damn, there hasn't been a Marvel thing for 2 weeks. What's going on? But now they're back with Ant-Man Quantumania.
Need your fix. You're itching.
Yes, I need my Marvel fix now, people. Give it to me. So yeah, we're not doing Paul Rudd films. I mean, who likes that guy anyway? He looks exactly the same all the time. Cheeky bastard.
He's made a deal with the devil.
What is his aging technique? I don't know. His skin routine. He must be like a... What's his face?
Mashed up ants. Just mashed up ant pieces. Just rubs them into his pores. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say just like a Patrick Bateman type, but sure, let's go with that.
That's even fucking weirder, actually, with ants instead of the skin. Yeah, no, he's obviously a serial killer. I think he's killing people that look like a younger version of him and wearing their skin.
Oh, right.
Like, I think it's... he's Leatherface, but like particularly if you look like Paul Rudd.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the only explanation.
The only explanation, of course. And of course, I'm joined by Boaz, who can't keep quiet before I introduce him, as always. You're very small right now. I think you need to press the button on the side of your hand so you can become big. There you go. There he is.
I'm big enough. I want to get smaller, actually.
All right. Fair enough. So, what do we make of Ant-Man 3, Quantumania? There's no 3 in there, it's just Quantumania.
No.
I feel like, a lot of people will probably be calling this Kang the Conqueror, Quantumania. Oh, and Ant-Man is in this as well.
He is. Kang is featuring very heavily in the promotion for all this stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they were kind of forced to put Kang in this film, not just because they're introducing all the Quantumania, Quantum Realm stuff, because they have explored that in the past, but obviously only briefly. But certainly from a selling point, like, I'm not sure, certainly at this stage at Marvel in Phase 5, to kick off Phase 5, having Ant-Man and the Wasp, and like I think Cassie Lang is going to have an Ant-Man suit as well, wouldn't be enough without a really insane villain. To like sell the film. But at the same time, I feel like going into this, I feel like if Kang is going to be the big bad of the rest of the MCU in Phase 5 and 6, then I feel like if Ant-Man can just defeat this guy in this film,
yeah, if he can one-shot
then
him,
like he ain't going to be very good in the future. So I feel like this film going in, it's going to be how the Ant-Man and friends going to like get out alive kind of thing, kind of story going into this, rather than him defeating him or just hurting him, because then if it's just going to be quite easy for everyone else. But
yeah, no, I kind of get what you mean.
I mean, are you genuinely like excited for this one, or?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess the world of the quantum realm does look interesting and very wacky and very like crazy sci-fi, so that would be interesting. But I think I'm most excited to see just Jonathan Majors as Kang. I think that would just be really interesting to see how he kind of changes this version of the character who we saw in spoilers, at the end of season 1 of Loki, where he's the man who remains at the end of the world, or whatever he's called in that. Yeah. He doesn't really have a name, but obviously he's a very mellow, eccentric character.
The one who remains.
Yeah. So I guess he'll be a lot more aggressive in this one. I don't know. So it'll be really interesting to see where they go with it. So what film did you go for ant films then, Boaz?
I went with A Bug's Life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So why did you pick this one over something like Ants?
I could have gone with Ants. It would have made a better ant, pun, ant films, Ants. I personally prefer A Bug's Life to Ants.
Oh, right.
So out of those two, I'd rather pick this.
I guess in like Ants, there's very like, as in Ants with a Z, there's more like internal politics going on. There's no like obvious villain in Ants. It's very much a twist in that film that Gene Hackman just wants the soldier ants to be in charge and doesn't want workers or whatever. There's kind of like weird like class politics in there as well for an animated film, which is quite interesting. Whereas this one there's a lot of really interesting things in like a writing point of view in A Bug's Life. But there is a more of an obvious villain in here. So what happens in A Bug's Life, Boaz?
So A Bug's Life is about a ant colony that has to constantly gather food, not just for itself, but for a gang of grasshoppers who are, they're kind of like a motorcycle gang of grasshoppers led by Hopper. So every season they come looking for food. It's basically extortion. But one day Flick, the kind of science-based ant played by Dave Filoni, he accidentally destroys all the food that they were meant to give the grasshoppers. So they have half a season to gather twice as much food, or there'll be trouble, to teach them a lesson. Flick decides to leave for a bug city that's away from the island, which no ant ever leaves, and find some warriors to help beat Hopper. But these warriors turn out to be circus clowns. He tries to keep that hush-hush from the colony.
So what's your initial reactions to this one then?
I've got like quite a lot of nostalgia from it. I watched it when I was really young, and I haven't watched it in a very long time. But all the memories came flooding back. I like the animation. I think even though it's quite simplistic, very basic, really. But it is pretty damn colourful. A lot of the jokes, I think, some of them are not as funny as I remember. But there's still some stuff that sticks. Yeah, and a pretty epic ending. So.
Yeah, I think with this one, it does skew to a more of a younger audience, I think, compared to a lot of the Pixar films. I think with this one as well, like, I think if you want to rewatch a Pixar film, I'm not sure this one would be like right at the top of the list, but it's still really fun, I think. I mean, this is Pixar's like second film, after Toy Story in 98, or maybe it's third after Toy Story 2. I'm not sure, but it's very early days, and I think a lot of like the 3D animation side of things has moved on quite a lot now. I feel like Pixar are kind of falling behind a little bit. Certainly now in the animation stakes, because you've got like Laika with Kubo and there's two strings, and they've done a few films where it's all kind of stop motion. You've got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, that's a stop motion film, and obviously the live action the animated live action Disney one they kind of did, which was not very good. Yeah, and obviously with the Spider-Verse film, that's kind of mixes 2D and 3D, which kind of really pops and makes that film look really quite remarkable. Whereas they're doing more interesting things with like their 3D animation. Pixar, they're doing more realistic backgrounds and environments, like with their camera work as well, more like bokeh and stuff, and, to make it feel like a proper film, I guess. But they've announced they're going to do a Toy Story 5.
Yeah, I've heard that
literally this week. Yeah, which is kind of weird.
I think that's pretty weird.
I'm like, hang on, what about Bug's Life? Why can't this have a sequel? I feel like this has been left in the dirt and no one really cares about it. But I'm like, it's pretty good still.
Yeah,
I think.
Because I think with Toy Story, that news did shock me. And the reason why is not that I don't like Toy Story. I love Toy Story. I actually like every single movie that's come out of Toy Story. I think they're great. But my problem is I think there's only so many times. So like Toy Story 3 felt like it wrapped it up. It felt like it wrapped up the movie. That the series is is done. I would even say like 2 to an extent, like they've got another family. It's done. And then you got 3 many years later, and it's Andy in college. Another unique idea. He gets to say goodbye. And then you've got, with the newer one, he said, he basically moves on from taking care of kids in general and decides to look after himself and Bo Peep.
Yeah.
I just think there's only so many times you can like feel like it ends. It's like, dude, this feels like an ending. If you carry it on, I think you might ruin it. And I think it's a miracle they didn't ruin it with 4. Because you're like, what are they meant to do here? He's with a new family. They've said goodbye to Andy. And then you've got an angle. Yeah, but he needs just kind of have a happy ending himself, like have the love of his life and be independent and, move on. And so that had like a theme. I'm just struggling. What could they even find without it feeling like it's treading water? So
it's a shame because obviously no one needed a Toy Story 4, and a lot of people's like least favorite Toy Story film really is Toy Story 4.
Yeah.
And I feel like with A Bug's Life, there's an A Bug's Life.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of like rich characters here, and a lot of characters that you can explore, and Pixar and Hollywood have just kind of forgotten about these characters, which is a shame, really, rather than keep churning out Toy Story films. So.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of fun to explore, older franchises.
So directing then for Bug's Life, I do like how like the tension builds to the entrance of the grasshoppers at the start. It establishes in the writing that the ants are pretty scared of something. All this food they've collected is clearly not for them. Then when the shell alarm goes off, panic sets in, and eventually all the ants get inside safe. Then when Flick knocks over the food pile into the river and you see the fear on his face, you know that the threat that's coming is pretty big. Then you hear a buzzing get louder and louder, and it's like a bombing raid from a World War II film is about to happen. You just see the shadows of what's coming briefly on the anthill. Then the buzzing all stops, a bit of funny dialogue, then boom, all the holes appear and grasshoppers come in and cause chaos. So it's a great, like, constant build-up for the villains of the film, right from the off, And when Hopper arrives, there's silence and just walks around showing everyone who's boss. So I thought it's a great, great opening to this film, just to show how dominant the grasshoppers are right at the start to open your film. I love the rescue mission where the circus bugs rescue Dot and Francis, the ladybug. Visually, it's pretty good, but I found the sound design really interesting. Like the bird sounds like a dinosaur.
Yeah, I've always liked that.
Like it's straight out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because they're just ants, so to them it probably would sound like a dinosaur. But the giant dung beetle basically sounds like a massive helicopter. They don't even try to make it sound like bug wings. So, it's the one sound effect that basically is for comedy for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, talking about the sound, I love, when it starts raining towards the end.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like, these things go off like bombs, but even the noise, you're talking about air raid sirens and helicopters and all that stuff. Like, they just straight out sound like fucking bombs, They're just... They're just blowing up left and right. Yeah, I really like that. And it doesn't, like, it kind of occurs to you a little later, because, it starts, they're gonna shoot Hopper out of a cannon, and then it just goes deathly silent, because they realize what's going on. And you see the rain come, and you just think, it's rain. And then it's only when it hits. Even from a distance, it doesn't look that scary, but it's only when it hits. It's like, bang.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship. wherever you get your podcasts.
Certainly from a sound point of view, the film really does put you into the ant shoes of, like, you know, making everything sound humongous. And even, like, from a design visual point of view, like how they personify everything into like bars and houses and things is quite interesting. Like in the bar scene, the tables are like bottle tops and stuff, and they're all just in like a big can and it's spinning around. So, you know, I always quite like that stuff. And like, what are the bugs called where their asses light up? Fireflies. There you go.
Yeah.
Like they're basically like spotlights for the circus show and traffic light signals.
Yeah.
Put yellow and red and green filters, I guess, on their ass.
Yeah, that was funny.
Which is quite funny. I really enjoyed like the final action scenes, because the action is a little different from each other, keeping you guessing. Like the fake bird action was okay. You know, you always felt that it was gonna fail at some point and Hopper will figure it out. But I didn't expect the flea again to mess things up twice in one movie. Then when Hopper lets the dog grasshopper loose on Flick, it's quite violent for a kid's animation. Like, they don't even show a lot of Flick's beating, you know, suggesting it's too violent to watch. So I was like, that's wild.
Yeah.
And then when the ants rise up against Hopper and the grasshoppers, you would be pretty satisfied with the ants blowing Hopper into the sky off the island with that cannon thing. But no, Hopper's demise needs to be more violent. He needs to be eaten alive by baby chicks. Which I find pretty hilarious.
I think that's what always gets me, because I always forget that it's going to be the chicks. Because every time I see that scene, you know, the thing roars at him and picks him up, and I'm thinking, okay, it's going to gobble him up T-Rex style. And I always forget, no, it feeds him to her young. I mean, like, what an embarrassing way to die. He's just being torn apart by children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the rain action was pretty cool. I do love like the stick insect gag where he gets stuck in the branches of the trees, and Francis the ladybug can't find him. I'm here. I'm the only bug with eyes. What are you doing? That's a great gag. Yeah, so I kind of just love how the tone varies quickly in the final scene, which you don't often see, really. My favorite shot is kind of like the huge zoom in to Flick's face when the penny drops that he's made another like huge mistake in hiring the circus bugs, and they're not warrior bugs at all. And I think you can get away with that huge camera move in animation compared to live action. Plus, you know, it really does suit the gravity of the situation too. So I kind of do like the fact that they really commit to that massive zoom in shot, push in shot to Flick in his realization moment, and that just a little animation of just his bottom lip going up and down, like, oh shit. But I guess for a scene, probably the last action scenes is pretty cool.
Yeah, I would think either the introduction of Hopper, you know, when they smash through, might be my favorite scene, or when he gets, or the whole rain sequence actually. Because, I just really like that. It's really, really interesting idea. Really done.
Nice.
It just makes something, you know, simple look incredibly epic. It was an epic last fight, actually.
So, directing score for me for A Bug's Life. Yeah, I think, because obviously this is co-directed by John Lasseter and Andrew Stanton, who did Finding Nemo. Andrew Stanton did. Yeah, so I guess, you know, this film is kind of seeing kind of what they can do at Pixar at this time, you know, 98, and still really trying to experiment. But one thing that kind of does bother me about this film that's just occurred to me, why are they violet blue?
Yeah.
They're some funny looking ants, man.
Yeah.
I mean, is this an alien world? I don't know. I've never seen a violet blue ant before.
Yeah,
At least ants with a Z gets it right and makes them brown looking. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, there isn't a single blue ant.
Maybe a racist comment there, but
I think it probably is. Yeah, racist.
all right.
Ant prejudice. No blues allowed.
To avoid racism against ants.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. Maybe they all live next to like some sort of chemical plant or something. Might explain why they talk.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just an odd choice for me why they're that color. And like all the other creatures, all the other bugs are kind of like the color that you would associate those bugs to be. So it's interesting. But yeah, directing score, I think I'll go like an 8.2. I think it's still really quite remarkable for when it was made, in 98.
Yeah, I think I'll go a straight late 8. Yeah.
Screenplay then. First of all, this is basically Pixar's version of like Seven Samurai or The Magnificent Seven, whichever part of the continent you live on, I guess, or appreciate more. It's kind of this very poor village type scenario where they're being oppressed by these greedy outsiders, bandits, and they just want their food, etc., and weapons and stuff. One lonely person from the village goes to a gunfighter or a samurai and asks for help to get rid of these bandits, and then obviously there's only 7 of them that come to help. So, and obviously the 7 in this film is the circus band. So that's kind of just the basis of it. So, which I quite like and appreciate, the kind of the subtle nods there. And obviously there's no like lying or scheming going on in those films. So I kind of like how they kind of twist the formula with that to make it its own. But I do find it interesting how they establish how dire the ant situation is and how big the threat is so early on from these grasshoppers, and making their hero feel like really stupid and naive. Plus, like every ant around Flick either thinks he's stupid or an idiot and rightly blaming him for losing the food pile. But what I like is the fact that you don't need to focus too much on the hero to establish who he is, because all the ants around him are all set in their stupid ways of gathering food. They don't like any of Flick's new ideas and to speed up production. All the stupid ants around him make Flick stand out like a sore thumb, and so Flick is quite likable compared to everyone around him, and you kind of give Flick's naivety a pass because the odds they're faced with are so high. Plus, it's a nice starting point for a character to grow, I guess. Flick is a lovable idiot, and all the other ants are kind of annoying idiots, to put it harshly, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Like the situation is proper dire at the start of this, and there's not a lot of hope at all.
No, I think, he's a very admirable character. Like he always tries to see the positive side, and he tries to just do his best, and everything is to help everybody else. I think he definitely stands out, and he's he's kind of like not taken seriously, not well liked. And I like how he kind of, turns the anthill over to his way of thinking, and they respect him. And then, there's when they find out it's all a lie, and he's sent away, and he loses hope. And the most hopeful character loses hope, but then he comes back and and saves the day.
I love how all these like misunderstandings and miscommunications like creates like brilliant comedy. Like the Queen Ant just agrees with Flick's plan to leave the island to find warrior bugs to just get rid of him. And then when Flick sees the circus bugs basically mess up a Robin Hood act, he's like, yeah, warrior bugs, come help fight off the grasshoppers with me. But the circus bugs just want to get away from the actual tough bugs who are actually the flies. So they just take the job thinking they're just going with Flick to entertain the grasshoppers. So pretty much right from the start, it goes from bad to worse for Flick without him knowing about it, which I thought was really quite clever. So there's a sense of impending doom in comedy throughout this film, which I think is quite clever.
Especially like when they cut to them building the bird and all that stuff, and then towards the end of that montage, it's like the leaves are falling. They've only got a couple of leaves left, and they have collected nothing. Like the camera's just like, there is nothing there. So if they screw up, they are gonna die. These things are gonna kill them.
And obviously he's kind of built a stronger relationship with the princess, and so there's more jeopardy there that he's about to compromise. But I kind of like how they still keep this doubt about whether the circus bug's secret will come out to haunt Flick or not. Like, even though the bugs have proven themselves in rescuing Dot in that rescue sequence, so everyone's on side with the bird plan. So if the truth does come out, which you predict is probably will happen, will it matter or not if they know the bugs are circus bugs and not warrior bugs? Will it even matter? So it's an interesting tension that the film adapts with this lie. But when the flea turns up and reveals that the bugs are in fact circus bugs to the ants, it hurts more when the ants banish Flick and the bugs again, because they've proved themselves already. So it's just really well constructed for me to make that moment kind of have a massive impact on Flick and the other circus bugs.
Yeah, definitely.
And it definitely makes like the queen and that council of ants just look really shitty people. Like really shitty people, even though they're fine. They helped you make the bird, But again, it has a great sense of the fact that, will this fake bird work anyway? So there's a lot of brilliant tension going on here, which I really like. Certainly like watching it as an adult, it works even more.
Yeah, and I also like the growth for the circus bugs, because they only agreed because they thought it was a circus gig. Then they wanted to leave, but it was like, we're expected to fight. Fuck that shit. And then and then they stayed because of the fame they were getting, and then they genuinely like the place and don't want to. They just want to move in. That's their home, and then the flea ruins it all and takes them. So you're like, oh man, that's and they're banished with Flick. So I think it hits twice, because it's not only Flick who is grown through this and from ridicule to respected, but also the clowns, and then that's kind of upended. And then it makes it even sweeter when it's all won back again. So I mean, it's classic writing structure, but it's just done. It's done pretty well.
I think when Flick is all depressed and he thinks he's a failure, and the colony thinks he's failed and a failure, the bugs try and bring him around, but fail. So Dot brings a rock and says, pretend it's a seed. And of course, Flick said that to Dot right at the beginning, that a tiny little seed will grow into a massive tree. And I felt like that was a tad weak to me, but the only weak part in the writing. I think it's a bit broad of a realization moment. I'm not really sure it relates to their situation. I guess a seed just represents one ant that gives birth to millions of ants. So basically, Dot is comparing the queen to a rock, which I think is a bit harsh. But there we go.
I thought it was meant to represent Flick. I guess it was kind of strange, why he switched on that.
What, growing as a person?
Yeah, growing as a person.
Or an ant.
Yeah, or an ant, yeah. Yeah, because I think it was I don't know, you can grow or be better or whatever.
It's a bit too broad.
It is a bit too broad. Here's the thing, I think it makes for a good joke because she didn't explain herself, and it relies on your prior knowledge of what the hell this is meant to represent from earlier in the film. And then the joke is they think that's an ant thing, just handing somebody a rock, and they don't understand. So then they do that to the ants, and they're like, well, it must be a circus thing. I think that was funny. But I do kind of agree. It does detract from the turning moment, the transformative lesson, because she doesn't explain herself. She gives this rock, and it's meant to add to the joke. But actually, it would have probably been better if she came with a speech.
Yeah.
I think that would have been more emotionally resonant rather than, here's this thing, everybody misunderstands, and it's a running joke.
Yeah. Because she doesn't, Dot, the little ant, doesn't really understand what Flick is saying anyway, at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like, this seed will become a tree. It's a rock. So, she doesn't really understand, when she gives him the rock
lesson.
anyway.
Yeah. So I think I would have added either two scenes. So if you want either she explains what the hell she's talking about. I get what you were saying. You're going to grow into something big and mighty, whatever, or you're going to do the right thing eventually, or something like that. She makes a good speech to him, in which case you ruin the rock joke, or you have her figure it out on the side. Have a scene where she's like, "I get it," and then she explains it to herself. Then the audience, then she could just like hand him the thing.
I'm not sure how you could do that though.
Yeah, you could do that. You just have an aside of like, either she explains it to herself and then goes and shows him the rock, and then he sort of gets it.
But I don't know how you have like a moment where like a seed is planted and she sees a tree grow from it. That's a long fucking film otherwise.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so I think that's the only kind of like weak part for me in a pretty good script, I would say, for a Pixar film. Favorite lines? Like the one right at the start where a leaf breaks up the ant line and he says, "I'm lost! Where's the line?" Is great. I love that. And it just basically just puts it right up front in this film that like these ants are kind of...
They're stupid.
Very, very obedient to what their culture is, and and a bit stupid. Yeah.
Herd mentality. It's like they cannot think for themselves.
I only got 24 hours to live. I ain't gonna waste it here. From the fly, the tough flies.
Yeah. Who ordered the poo-poo platter?
I mean, that even looked disgusting on screen anyway, to be honest. I'm like, fuck that.
It looks too real. Too real. You can't do real ants, but you do real shit.
Yeah.
Come on. Get your priorities straight, Pixar.
At least put the poo light blue coloured or whatever the colour is, violet.
Yeah. Stink lines.
It'll make it more appetizing.
But anyway, that always makes me laugh because I was young. I didn't know what the hell a poo-poo platter was. And so I heard that joke. I thought, that's funny. They're eating shit. And then I went to a fancy restaurant with my parents much later, and they had a poo-poo platter spelt differently, and it just made me laugh. And every time I go to a fancy restaurant and there's a poo-poo platter, it just constantly makes me laugh. I'm just like,
Yeah. Wow, burn him again! After they accidentally burn the flea character. That was hilarious. Oh, one of my favorite moments. This film is quite dark at times. Because I mentioned that they kind of beat up Flick off screen. I'm like, that's pretty brutal. There's massive bruises on his face, and there's a moment where like the little ants are kind of at school and they show a presentation of the circus ants on a big leaf, and like it's all really bloody. Heimlich is like half eaten.
Yeah, that was funny.
Just half of him, blood everywhere. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, I like that. It's like we had to show one of you dying. Our teacher said it would be more exciting, and I love the color on Heimlich or whatever. He just goes from green to like white, like that. So all the color goes out of him. That always makes me laugh.
And the Black Widow says, "Oh, look at the beautiful colors of blood," which is great. Just a weird, like, macabre moment in a Pixar film.
I die and die.
And obviously one of the best characters says near the end, "Look, I'm a beautiful butterfly with tiny wings. I can fly." Heimlich is brilliant.
Yeah, he's great.
But I think my favorite one is kind of I just find hilarious. It's not a big like joke, but it's just kind of relates to that first one. I'm lost. Where's the line? And like, I think one of the leader ants or whatever, just being in charge of the line, comes up and says, "This is nothing compared to the twig of 93." I just find that was hilarious to me. You got a favorite then?
I like Hopper's annoying brother,
Malt.
Yeah, Malt. Yeah. Yeah, I find their interactions funny, especially like in the first time where he talks, because they're bloody scary. The grasshoppers, and they're making a presence, and it's as you were saying, like it's wonderfully done. they make their presence known and they're scary. They're a big deal, and it demonstrates that in the camera work and the pacing and everything and the sound. And then as he's talking and threatening them, and you've got the camera like making the princess look small because it's looking up at Hopper. And while he's giving that speech, and then his bloody brother just starts spouting nonsense because he's saying like, what was it? You know how this works. The ants pick the food, the grasshoppers eat the food, and then he's like, and the birds eat the grasshoppers. You remember that one time when that bird almost ate you? And how does that? And he's like, he just grabs him. He's like, shut up. He goes, if I didn't promise Mother, I would kill you. And how he even punches that other guy because he won't shut the fuck up. Yeah, because he's saying, do you understand me? He goes, how am I meant to talk if you told me not to talk? And he's going to punch him. And he's like, remember Ma? And he punches another grasshopper. Yeah, that whole sequence is funny.
So, screenplay score for me, yeah, I really like this screenplay. I think it's great. Like, I think certainly early Pixar, they could do no wrong, really. I think they're certainly that period of the late 90s to early noughties was, well, right up to 2010, I guess, with Toy Story 3 was amazing. Yeah, so I'll go like an 8.7 8.7 I think, because it's just really great like dynamics of how they manipulate the lies going on with Flick, and I think it's great.
Yeah,
for a kids film essentially. What are you going for, sir?
I'll go 8.9. It's funny, and Hopper is just a great villain. It's pretty damn intimidating.
An intelligent villain as well, not just a stupid one, because there's that scene where I guess they're in Mexico. They're living in like a Mexican hat.
Yeah.
And they've got like a big bottle of seeds, and all the other grasshoppers are like, yeah, we don't need to go back. We've got plenty of food. We don't need to go back to the ants. He explains his point by like grabbing one of the seeds and like, pretend this is an ant. He throws it at him. Does that hurt? No.
Yeah, because he's humouring them at first, isn't he? He's like, yeah, do you know what? What was I thinking? Why should we go back? We're fine. But that one ant stood up to me. He's like, but it's just one ant. Exactly. So, he goes, like, imagine one of these ants is like one of these seeds. Does that hurt? Does that hurt?
No, of course not. What are you on about, man?
Just drowns him in like a million seeds.
Yeah, and then he pulls the lid of the bottle of the seeds and they all come out. So Hopper understands that if they rise up, they're screwed.
Yeah.
So it's important that they don't realize that. So we need to put our foot down and make an example of some of them and squish them. That's their plan. Hopper is an intelligent character. And it's interesting that they reveal that like pretty much halfway through the film, even though that's kind of like what would probably happen anyway. They don't really make a secret of that to the audience, which I think is a good thing certainly in this tone of a film. So yeah, an intelligent villain in this, I would say.
I wonder how things would have gone differently in the script had, in the bar fight, if they had picked the giant fly, the big muscly fly they were running away from. Like, he's a warrior. He's a fucking beast. Yeah. Like, if they had picked that guy.
Well, they only live for 24 hours, so that's a problem.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Hollow out his corpse and wear it as armor.
Oh, my God. Fair enough, yeah. I mean, the film is pretty macabre anyway, so, that would make sense. That's fine. There's a lot of blood in here anyway.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So, voice acting then. I'm not sure there are too many like unique voices here, but I like how they kind of place certain voice actors into certain groups of characters. Like with the ants, they're mainly like normal sounding voices, nothing too out there or eccentric. Like, Flick is voiced by David Foley, a nice soft sounding voice. He's in a lot of kids films, so you can kind of relate to that character more. And then you have like Kevin Spacey, who puts on a more aggressive voice, and he's quite intimidating as a character anyway with his design. There's one eye that's kind of got a scar through it and kind of pale, so he's kind of gross looking anyway and scary. But contrast that voice with quite clown-like characters like Richard Kynes malt, the comic relief character with the grasshoppers. So it kind of makes Kevin Spacey's character feel more villainous anyway, with that contrast. So that kind of works. Then you have all the very quirky and quite stereotypical characters with the circus bugs. So I think a lot of thought has gone into casting here in differentiating these groups of bugs. So I think they do a great job of casting these voices, to be honest.
And I like the ladybug is done kind of like a tough sort of suburban sort of almost like a gangster.
Yeah, because he's the one kind of character that subverts your expectations of what the character's design should sound like. The sticking insect's voice is quite like a scaredy cat, and the praying mantis sounds like an old English thespian. But Francis, the ladybug, is voiced by Dennis Leary, who voices the saber-toothed tiger in Ice Age. So he's got a very gruff voice, which completely subverts your expectations of how that character should sound. You're expecting a very feminine voice. So they do play on that in the story a bit with the flies. But it's the only voice that doesn't fit the character's design that works well, for comedy. So that was quite an interesting choice. Whereas all the other kind of characters are they kind of definitely fit the character designs. Yes, in a quite a stereotypical way, but I don't mind that. I mean, does the big dung beetle have a voice actor? He might have done, but he doesn't really have many lines.
He doesn't have many lines, but he does sound sort of like the Hulk, I don't want to go and stuff like that. He just sounds like a big dumb thing.
Yeah.
Or he laughs like a sort of jolly giant.
Favorite voice actor?
I think it might be Dennis Hopper. Not Dennis Hopper. What the fuck am I talking about?
Hopper is his character.
Hopper, yeah. Kevin Spacey. That's one. Or the guy that plays the flea. Actually, most of them are great. I like most of them. And Heimlich. And it's pretty difficult to pick one, really.
P.T. Flea. What, John Ratzenberger, who's in a lot of Pixar films.
Yeah, he is, yeah. Yeah, he's the pig from Toy Story. Yeah, it might be the flea, actually. I think I'll give it to the flea. How about you?
My favourite voice actor is, no surprise, really, it's Joe Ranft, who plays who plays Heimlich as a nice German.
Yeah, really campy German. Campy fat German.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. The camp German. I've got wings now. Yes, I like that character.
You look like little insects from up here.
Yes, he's amazing. So, voice acting score for me, I will go with a solid 8, I would say. How about you, sir?
I'll go 8.2.
Right, let's add up the scores then for A Bug's Life. Bars' favourite part. A Bug's Life gets exactly 50 points. So this could be tight, people, for our Ant movie episode.
Ants.
That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.